your job description, the one you see posted on the website, is only like 60% of the type of work you'll be doing in the company.
Welcome to Riffle Sessions. My name is Mrinali, and my goal for this year is to sit with the builders and designers shaping the next generation of startups so you can learn from their experience and apply it to your own journey. Today, I'm talking with Eugene, founding designer at Hyperbound, and in this episode, we go deep into what it actually means to be a founding designer, what the day-to-day looks like, how to balance speed versus quality in early-stage startups, and what to look for when growing your team. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Hi everyone, super excited to share my experience today with all of you. And my story is quite simple. My name is Eugene Reuka. I was born in Ukraine. I'm Ukrainian, and I'm living in Scotland right now. I became a designer like about 6 years ago. And back in that time, it was quite an interesting time to be a designer. You could just like explore a lot of things and different styles. And I definitely think like back in that time, it was quite interesting and unique. And originally my career path was to be a front-end engineer. So I kind of like was learning front-end stuff on some basic level. And I just discovered web design for me. And I just realized that I enjoy like doing web design more than coding websites. And that is slowly how I became who I am today, which is a product designer at Hyperbound.
What happened from, you being a designer to becoming a founding designer?
I reached out to Sai, who is one of the co-founders at Hyperbound, on Work at Startup, which is like a sub-product of a Y Combinator to look for like different positions at YC startups. And we just had really casual chat, I would say, like just talked about like, his background, my background as well. And funny enough, Sai was an engineer at YC startup before called Bloom. And at that startup, my friend was a designer. So I just like, casually mentioned, like, do you know Artem, who was, was a designer at that company? And he was like, yeah, he was a designer at our company. So we just like casually talked about that more. And yeah, that's pretty much how we've met. And from that moment, we only had one more interview the very next day with another co-founder. And I joined the company 2 days after that interview. So
Did you end up showing your work, and what was that like, and to whom were you showing it?
the team was pretty much two people except the co-founders. So I actually didn't get to meet any of the team members before I joined the company, but the process with the co-founders was quite interesting. So instead of like showing my case study, so instead of like talking more about, like my previous experience, co-founders really wanted me to open like one of the Figma files of previous projects I worked on and just like, explain what they're looking at and explain my process and, explain the decisions I had to make to achieve this result. So basically just like wanting to see how I work in Figma and how I think in Figma, right? It's just like, if it's going to be my tool day to day, they needed to see how confident I am with showing work, with explaining work, and with making decisions.
Would you be able to pull up that Figma file that you showed them?
So pretty much for that project, it was a fintech company, a fintech startup. And I just quickly opened this project with them and explained, first of all, what the company does. And the company is focused on providing kind of like financial services for international founders. And obviously I explained, how I worked with stakeholders, like founders of that company and their engineering team. And it just quickly, showed some of the designs I have here, different states. I explained some of the problems we had during the research, because as you know, this is a fintech company. So there's like a lot of compliance and a lot of kind of like legal stuff involved that you need to account for when you design something like this. They ask a few questions about, how I deal with disagreements with other stakeholders and how I usually work, and do I just like jump straight to like visual design, or I prefer to wireframe and like, sketch first. And so pretty much like there was like no work assignments to do, because I feel like a lot of early stage startups, they tend to move fast because once again, if they are early stage startup, like, seed stage startup, they have no time to waste and they cannot afford to have like a long, like, even 1 week or like 2 week hiring process.
What was
Sure.
what were your questions for the founders during the interview process?
I just asked a lot of questions about, how they came up with the idea that they currently have with Hyperbound. So they actually had to pivot from the original idea as they got into YC with. And I was just like curious, why did they end up to, why did they end up pivoting to what Hyperbound is today? And I got some really cool insights from like the sales world and um, some of the research they've done and talked to some people about that. And I was just also curious about. I tried to keep it like really casual and not really professional, and try to like ask questions on like personal level, like what are your goals and like figures and what are you looking to do with this company? Are you looking to get acquired? Are you looking to get? Are you looking to IPO? And I feel like because of the transparency from the founders, I really enjoyed the atmosphere and the conversation we had, and I decided to join the company to be founding designer.
How did you begin to work with these two technical founders who may or may not have hired a designer before and who may or may not know how to work with designers? So give us a little bit of insight on how that looked like.
So both founders were actually engineers before, and one of the founders, Atul, he's more like backend and more kind of like infrastructure focused engineer. But the other founder, Sai, he was like always interested in design and he was actually designing the platform himself before I joined. So we had a lot of like meaningful conversations about design and like branding and the like visual style for Hyperbound with Sai and both Atul as well. Uh, but pretty much like from their experience, I feel like they handled the whole hiring process really well. And the questions they were asking were quite on point, the type of questions I would ask. And yeah, I feel like it was really professional and clear.
How did you start growing into that role of just starting out at Hyperbound to now like owning the design at Hyperbound?
Pretty much the first step I took was research about the industry, research about competitors, and obviously talking to the founders about, what is it trying to achieve and what they have achieved so far, and, what are the goals and stuff like that. So there was a lot of learning that was required for me to get on board and understand like what is the next steps for the company, because I as a designer was obviously responsible for designing and maintaining like core features of the product, so we absolutely had to be aligned on the next steps and the future of the company. I would say like it's not traditional learning experience as you could get like in big company, which is kind of like onboarding process, where they give you like a week and you like learn a lot, you like to talk to more people and you kind of like take it easy. In a startup like that, like in an early stage startup, you have no time to spare to just say, okay, I'm gonna spend 1 week just to learn about industry and the company. You basically do it on a go. You have to maintain design. You basically have to do everything that is not only about design, but also about like, how else you might help the company. And you also have to learn in parallel to make sure like, you know, there's nothing that is like unclear to you. And of course, you never do it by yourself. You always have people to ask, to get answers from. So like founders or other team members.
How do you decide on what the right direction is? Like say, I'm sure there's been times where the founders are or like all three of you might be in like different headspaces. And how do you figure out what the right direction to go in?
That is quite common in a startup because again, like if the founders are like in early stages, they cannot separate themselves from the design and product. So they are always involved and working with you. So of course, they have different views, they have different ideas, and from my experience, I felt like the best way, if I have a disagreement with one of the co-founders, like stakeholders, to proceed with the design, is to basically just have one version that I feel strongly about, present, and also design versions that they like, and just compare them side by side. And oftentimes, conversation ends there.
What do you have you worked with startups before? And like, what do you think are like red flags in founders that you can identify when that early interview happens? And what are some
Mhm.
like definite green flags where you're like, yes, very easy to know whether this founder is worth working with because it's a huge, um, you're taking a big leap of faith when you're joining a startup.
So I think like the green flags that I noticed, if the person is really interested in your work, they are saying like, okay, what you're doing, like with design, for example, is really important, and we value that. And the red flag is when the person who is not a designer thinks they're a designer, and they're trying to push like their solutions on you, and they're not listening to your expertise, and they're not listening to your advices, and they feel like they need to be doing that kind of like by themselves. So those people are really hard to work with, because no matter how hard you can explain to them that um, the way you think is not the way users think, for example, right? Or maybe like you're not the expert in this as much as you like to think, right? They never listen to you, and that is, I think, is a problem in this industry.
I think you also, as a founding designer, you need to wear a lot of different hats. Do you see yourself doing like branding, marketing, all of
Mhm.
that? What does day to day work look like?
In a startup, if you're joining as a designer, pretty much, I just want to quote what one of the co-founders, Otto, said to us like a long time ago. Your job description, the one you see, posted on the website, is only like 60% of the type of work you'll be doing in the company. Because as a designer, again, like even though you might be a product designer at a startup, you also have to do like everything related to design, like marketing work, like like print design, marketing materials, all those things. Because frankly, there is no one else to do that. So that's all your job. And of course, you also have to keep all that in mind, manage, deliveries, manage like, estimations from other team members on when this will be done. And of course, you also have to carry the whole image of brand and the company in mind to make sure it all looks, you know, somewhat connected. I feel like every team member at Hyperbound in the early days was answering customer support tickets, and like, maybe some users would like ask a question about the product. And again, all of us are experts, you know, in Hyperbound product, because again, we have to learn, we have to adapt, and we have to know what we are working on. And like we would just like go and like answer those tickets, because once again, there was no one else to do that.
That's an amazing example, and I'm surprised, but now that I think of it, it kind of makes sense because you know few people, lots to do, so you kind of just don't say
Exactly.
this is not my job. What are some tools and workflows that have sort of helped you do more with less?
Think Figma, and that is a really obvious answer, but I want to clarify that. I feel like Figma come a long way from being like a simple tool. They came a long way into being this kind of like almost like Adobe, as they have like a lot of like sub tools. They have like FigJam, they have like Figma Make. They have a lot of like different sub products they can use. You can use. We use V0 from Vercel a lot. So one of our product solution engineers, he is basically just using V0 for prototypes. So, for example, there's like a requirement for a feature, and he oftentimes just goes and like builds the prototype, like UI prototype, using AI in V0 before handing it over to the product team or design team. Previously, we experimented with using Cursor to like push some like small changes to the front end, but to be frank with you, like um, it's not that beneficial for me personally, because once again, like when you're a designer
Yeah.
in a startup, you basically have a lot to do, and pushing like pixels and like maybe like adjusting icons is not really that important for you to work on at that particular moment. But now we're getting back to that because we have more bandwidth on the design side.
Talk a little bit more about when you knew it was the tipping point of, okay, I need another designer on board.
Mhm. So pretty much that point started in August last year, because that is the time when we raised Series A, and of course we got a lot of attention. We got a lot more clients coming our way as well. We just realized that we have a lot of ideas and great features in our roadmap, and we just crucially need another designer, because like we need two people, for example, to work on two big features at the same time. And of
Mm.
course, it's all about like number of people at the company. When I joined, I was the third employee at the company, and now we are at around 35 people. So as you can understand, like it's not really scalable to be one designer for like 35 people, even though like engineers are like 10 people, right? So I think like the good ratio is one designer per like uh, 3 to 5 engineers, ideally. I think like the most important part for me in the hiring process was to make sure that the designer who's going to join is going to be independent and qualified. So I won't feel the need to look at his work and double check like that everything is correct and right.
Mm.
I won't feel the need to just check their work. I should feel confident that they can handle their side and they can deliver good work. And I'm really happy with the designer we hired recently. His name is Andrew, and he's a really good designer, and I feel confident working with him alongside.
When we were talking together in the past, you said you had like 3,000 applications for this particular role, right? Let's take a little bit about, where was this role posted? How did you figure out how to wade through 3,000 applications? Did you have any help?
Mhm. So we indeed had 3,000 applications for this role over that period of like 5 months. And the reason for that is because like out of those 3,000 applications, maybe half of them, even more, were not qualified at all. So I feel like a lot of like bots, or like maybe people who are like not even reading job description would apply. And of course, because the numbers are big, we basically had a posting on Work at Startup for this role. We also had some help with some of the recruiting agencies who would like send some candidates over our way. And of course, we just like posted on LinkedIn and reached out to some people about like, hey, do you know like someone who might be a good fit for this role? The people who recruiters would send our way, we kind of put more attention to them, because we felt like they were pre-qualified and pre-checked by those members of staffing agencies. And I would say like we had an interview with most of the people who recruiters sent our way. But I think like the most important part we checked was portfolio and experience as well, because if we were to just open Work a Startup and check out the portfolios that people had, uh, I'm gonna say you this: people who work at startups, people who are hiring, do not have time to read through every case study you have on your portfolio. So they don't have time to spend like 10 minutes reading about your portfolio, about your experience, because again, they have a lot of candidates, and if they feel like you're not going to be a good fit from the first impression based on your experience on your portfolio, it's less likely they will schedule an interview with you and proceed to the next steps. So this is a portfolio of a person we hired. Again, his name is Andrew. Nothing too flashy, nothing too unique, but clean and on point. So yeah, I mean, pretty much a short explanation and short bio about his experience, and just a short section about work. Um, I feel like he doesn't even have case studies in his portfolio, and those are not needed. This is all you need at this point to say, okay, this person has been a designer at this company, as a lead designer for like this long. Short explanation about his work and experience, and you can also like learn more about his previous roles and like gigs, pretty much here.
That is really interesting. When you said case studies are not needed in a portfolio, tell me a little bit more about that, because I think when you go towards larger companies, they want to see
Mhm.
case studies. But I'm
Yeah.
seeing more and more this trend in startups where you just are like putting everything succinctly in like one
Mhm.
place and you're not diving deep.
Yeah, I want to clarify that I might be used really strong words. I'm saying for like case studies are not needed. I want to say that case studies are probably really needed, but later in the process. So again, it's all about
Mm.
first impression. Like if I really don't like, for example, the work the person has in their portfolio, like I can tell it from like maybe some screenshots and maybe like some, you know, some of the works that I set as display. The chances are that I will go and like read more about the case studies. Inside of the case study is actually lower uh, because again, like it's all about first impression, and again, like you have a lot of candidates in the pipeline. Um, if you're talking more about this person and you're seriously considering them for this role, case studies are quite important, but I personally value the way the person would explain their work, right? So instead of me going like inside of the case study and reading more about like, this process on my screen, I would prefer to talk with this person and hear from them, what is this project? How did they achieve the result? Because again, like I'm going to be working with this person day to day, and I would really value just to hear his thoughts and his process from his like from his words, because that would just like tell me everything I need to know.
So let's make this portfolio much bigger and walk me through. Did this person come through a recruiter,
Mhm,
or did this person come through work
mhm,
at startups? Or pinpointed like what were the green flags that you were like, yes, I want to take this person to the next
mhm.
round.
Absolutely. So I think like for me, the some of the green flags were type like clean wipes, you know what I mean? Sometimes you open a portfolio and I feel like it's kind of like a mess. You're not sure what's going on. You're not sure like what is this even like trying to tell you. And this portfolio just like told me everything I need to know. A short explanation about who this person is, some of the work experience I had, and they quickly go into work. Like there is nothing else I need to know about this designer at a first glance, except just like a short explanation and his work. I don't want to read like a paragraph about his career path, so like maybe his like biography. All I need to know is this designer is skilled and have experience and they have good work.
And
By looking at this work, I can tell that this person can manage really complex interfaces, which is really important. Like it's really easy, for example, to design a P2C, kind of like a social media app, right? But it's extremely hard to get right, type of interface like this, because like a lot of companies in trading and crypto and like finance, they spend thousands on research, tens of thousands on research just to make sure like this is the right interface. This type of interface accomplishes user needs and stuff like that. So I think like with this particular example, I just understood. Like I, I just I just imagined myself as a user and I could tell, okay, I can use this as a user. It's clear enough for me. And the fact that I as a user can imagine myself using this tells me that this person is definitely worth uh having a chat with for this position.
got it. Did you at this point also look at their resume and what,
Mhm.
if you did, like what were you looking for there?
Yeah. So this person came through a recruiter reference, and they explained about their experience. They explained, more about the previous companies I worked at, and they actually worked before Hyperbound at um, and a sales related in company. And it was actually a huge bonus because like again, Hyperbound is AI and not on it's a sales revenue platform. And we focus on AI role plays. We focus on a lot of things that help salespeople, improve their skills. And the fact that that person was working in a similar company in the same industry was a huge bonus for us.
Mm. Were you looking at years of experience at all?
Um, yes, but not at the most important level. So what I mean by that is we agreed that we have like a minimum number of years of experience. So for us, it was like two, I think. So there's like the bare minimum. And the reason for that is because like, again, this role requires a lot of responsibility and ownership. And um, you only get that through, through experience, pretty much. You have to be proven. You have to prove that you were in a position like that before and that you're reliable and independent enough to be founding designer.
What was in the notes that helped you realize that you're getting higher signal compared to someone who applied through work at startup?
Yeah, pretty much the template those recruiters would use is okay, this person is Andrew, they have, this many years of experience. They previously been a lead designer at this company, they've been designer at this company for like a long time. Um, they worked in an industry similar to yours. And those kind of things, like they just make this person stand out from the rest, as opposed to someone who would just like, reach out to work a startup and have unclear portfolio, unclear like number of unclear work experience. It's just a bit confusing.
Um, do you think people could have joined this role by doing anything to stand out through cold outreach to reach out to
Mhm.
you? I had some people from the community ask, what are your thoughts about building a small kind of prototype to show that they can be a good fit for the role?
Absolutely, that's a really good question, and definitely yes, but to a certain point. So, uh, if you, for example, do something that is more than just like apply to the on company's website, the chances are you're gonna be noticed more than those people who just apply. And what I mean by that is like you can do like a simple, cold outreach. Actually, let's make it kind of like, more personal. You can like reach out to the founders and maybe the person who's like hiring for this role and make it sound personal and unique. You're definitely going to stand out from like the rest of people, there is. Um, but again, like it's all about like, standing out. It's not the only thing that will get you hired. I personally like put more attention to like reading more about experience and like reading through portfolios of people who, for example, like reached out to me or people who were referenced to me by like some other people, right? Saying like, okay, I really liked working with this designer. Could you take a look at their portfolio? I'm not going to spend like 5 seconds and say no. I'm going to make sure that, I spend good amount of time like reading towards their experience and looking at their portfolio. But again, even though they stand out from the rest, if I feel like the work they're doing is not really what we're looking for, or is they not experienced enough, or maybe many other factors, the fact that they were standing out from the rest will not make us hire them.
Got it. What should someone do who is maybe just getting out of school, starry eyed, not sure whether to go big tech, or actually would take a job that is given to them, right?
Sure.
Um, what advice do you have?
Absolutely. I think like first of all, it's don't feel ashamed to share your work. Like if people don't see your work, it's really bad because they don't know your skills, right? It might not be good enough, level that they're looking for, but at least they know what kind of work you can do. And if it's good enough, they're gonna reach out to you. So don't stop sharing your work. Use Dribble, use X, use LinkedIn, use any other platform you might think. And first of all, you're gonna get noticed by other designers. You're also gonna get noticed by hiring managers, and you're also gonna get noticed by clients, who will really like the type of work you're doing and reach out to you for like, some freelance work as well. So don't feel ashamed or don't feel you should feel confident about sharing your work and improving your work because that's the only way to improve yourself as a designer. So that is the first advice I can give. And the second one is be organized. And what I mean by that is a lot of the people, they tend to have unorganized portfolios, unorganized work experience. And that's really putting off people who look at you when you apply, for example. Because like if your work portfolio, for example, is on Google Drive, which is protected by passwords you never know. Like that basically tells me that this person is maybe say don't know what they're doing pretty much. Your portfolio needs to be clean, uh, easy to read, and yeah, that's all it needs to have. It doesn't need to be like super flashy. It doesn't need to be like something that is like unique and advanced. It just needs to be clean, on point, and easy to read. That's pretty much all it takes.
Thank you, Eugene. You have been a wealth of information. Super awesome for you to be here. And Thanks everyone for coming.
Of course. Thank you, Manali, and thanks everyone for coming. Have a great rest of your day.